This is the Brain, and you're listening to the Geekcast Radio Network. Yes!
You are now on the inside of what I like to call the circle of trust.
We are all connected in the great circle of life.
You know something, Bert? What? I think you and I are going in circles.
It feels like we're going in circles.
The circle is now complete. When I left you, I was but the learner. Now I am the master.
Because it's a circle.
Yeah, we heard about the circle.
Yes, we're familiar with shapes.
Hi, this is Greg.
This is Chuck.
And this is Dan, and we are Talking in Circles, brought to you by the Geekcast Radio Network, the podcast that is undergoing its own civil war as we discuss the biggest movie in America and the world, and that, of course, is Captain America, the Civil War. But before we get to that, how's the week been for you guys?
Week's been not too bad. I've actually started working out again, so that's always fun.
Nice.
I've realized I've gotten big enough. I need to get to put a stop to it. So started, working out, being pretty strict on my diet and stuff. I lost 5 pounds so far. So
nice.
Yeah, but I'm like sore as hell because like I'm doing like the mix of like weightlifting and cardio, which they say is like the best way to burn fat. Like a perfect mix of the two. And it is better than either of them by themselves, they say. So I'm doing that, but I'm doing like legit stuff. Like I'm doing squats and deadlifts and all that stuff. And like my legs are just so sore. Like, oh my gosh, they're sore for like 4 days, which happens when you first start. It just takes a few weeks for you to kind of get conditioned. So I'm, waiting for that break-in point to arrive so that I'm not, nearly as sore. I still will be a little bit after workouts, but those first few weeks are the roughest.
Yeah, it's like when something's like on the other side of the room, it's like, I don't think I'm going to get up. So it's somehow working out makes you lazier. It's just like so much pain.
Yeah. They wanted me to, the one day at work, they wanted me to help them move tables out of the conference room, and they wanted to take them downstairs and stuff.
Yeah.
And I'm like, I can't do stairs right now. I'm like, it just doesn't work. I could barely walk myself, let alone carry a table. So It was kind of funny, but it'll be worth it in the end.
Greg, how things going with you?
I'm also working out. Mine's been going on longer and nobody cares about me working out. But I'm trying out this new pen as we podcast. It's this Pentel brush pen that I just got along with Deadpool on Blu-ray. So nice. I'm playing with the pen since I can't watch the Deadpool movie and podcast at the same time.
I picked that up today as well.
The Pentel brush pen? Yeah.
No,
what
the
do you think
Deadpool.
Of it?
Deadpool Blu-ray.
Nice. I feel like we just talked about that movie when it came in theaters. It's already on Blu-ray.
That one had quick turnaround. Usually you're waiting forever for stuff to come out.
It was funny. I ended up getting it at Walmart because it was the Blu-ray DVD combo thing, and it was only $20. And the lady at the checkout thing, she's like, this thing's been selling like crazy all week. She's like, what is a new PlayStation game? I was like, no, it's a movie. She's like, oh, really? I don't even pay attention.
I can tell.
I'm like, clearly.
The most oblivious person in the world. It's like,
I know.
What is this?
Congratulations, you're one of the 12 people that never heard of the Deadpool movie.
I know, seriously. Wow. That's funny. Insane. Yeah. That's crazy. My week's been going pretty well. We actually were off last week. Unfortunately, I went to Scranton, visited Chuck, Greg, and a bunch of other people. We got to see Civil War together, so it was a great bonding experience. But I did find out something really cool. It was like, I felt like this personal gift to me. I don't know if have you guys ever watched any of those or heard of the CinemaSins, Everything Wrong With videos?
Yes, and I saw your Facebook post.
Yeah, so someone, I don't know how deep this is going to go, but someone had Everything Wrong With videos, and I loved it, because I'm not a big fan of the CinemaSins things. Like, I just find that they're very overly nitpicky, and a lot of their nitpicks aren't really correct, and they're just, I can go on forever, but basically I feel like it's purposely negative criticism just to be negative, and it's often basically making false critiques just for hollow jokes. And what this did was basically obliterate a lot of their complaints that they have, which I found very fascinating. And I don't know. I kind of hate that type of like internet criticism that exists anymore. Like let me just do a video about why everything sucks. So, so that was a lot of fun though, watching that. And I like Greg mentioned, I put it on Facebook, so you can check it out and see if you also enjoy it. So the one I posted was on Everything Wrongs with Age of Ultron. So I'm just waiting for the other one that's Everything Wrong with. See how deep we can get this to go. So I think it's only starting. But today, we know there's a lot to cover and unpack with Captain America Civil War, so we're going to take a quick break, and when we come back, we're going to do a nice general review for those 14 people who have not seen Civil War, one being the person that Chuck saw at Walmart, apparently probably has not seen this movie, but after that, we'll then get into a spoilerific review, so don't worry, if you have not seen the movie, we'll try to at least give you something to listen to, so we'll be back in just a bit.
Hello, geeks. Want a podcast that covers a vast array of topics with no rhyme or reason? Then check out Altered Geek Unlimited, where the topics fly more or less off the cuff. We cover media news, TV, our favorite geek products, and of course, your feedback. So get altered, get geeky with the Altered Geeks every Friday on the Geekcast Radio Network.
All right, and welcome back. So I figured let's start, like I mentioned. We're going to get into just some general thoughts, and similar to how we did a Batman v Superman review. After that, we'll do a nice spoiler warning and get into the nitty-gritty details. But
unlike the Batman vs. Superman review, I think this will be a good review.
Perhaps. There's a good chance. I think you might hear a few more positive comments than that one. But, Greg, I guess starting with you then, overall just general thoughts and feelings towards Captain America Civil War.
It was really great. I think it's a top tier Marvel movie. I think it's towards the head of the line here. Definitely better than the last Avengers movie. If you were a little disappointed in that, I think you will be better off with this movie. It was done by the Russo brothers, who did Captain America Winter Soldier, which was also another great movie, and they continue in suit with this one. Got all your characters in there, and a lot of storyline, a lot of characters, but unlike Batman vs. Superman, they know how to handle all those characters and stories and get it into a formulation that kind of fits together and makes sense and is a lot of fun, keeps you interested the whole time. A lot of great action scenes going on. They stick true to the characters and their different personas, especially with Tony Stark and Captain America. You have all these characters. I think you had your review written up online somewhere, Dan, and I read it, so I'm kind of taking this, which I really liked, that you could still focus in on. It was definitely a Captain America movie still and an Iron Man movie still. So it fit in with that Civil War theme, even though there are all these characters going around, because you could feel their sense of remorse going on because of his ego. But you've got Cap, who's sticking to his guns and knows he's right, going on, which was really great that they stuck to the characters like that. Black Panther comes in. He's awesome. He's new into the storyline here. And you've got Spider-Man, who was also pretty great in here. He got an applause at our movie theater, which I thought was kind of odd since we've only seen him in 5 other movies. It's not like the first movie he's been in, so that was kind of weird.
Queens got an applause. When they went to Queens, you saw like people just break out in applause.
I didn't understand that either. We're in Scranton. Why are people applauding Queens? Like, it was
Wolverine's claws got an applause in the Apocalypse trailer.
Yeah, it was very bizarre. We've seen Wolverine multiple times before, and a lot of people don't like his movies for some reason. Even though the last one out was pretty decent with Wolverine and his solo. But anyway, and we also got to see the hot Aunt May, the freaking gorgeous Marissa Tomei in there, doing a great job acting alongside. I guess I won't say who she was acting alongside in that scene because I think that'll get saved for the spoiler section, I think. But overall, I thought it was really great. Definitely in the top 5 maybe of Marvel movies.
Great. Yeah, I know, Chuck, Civil War, you love the comic Civil War. It's one of your favorites. You've loved a lot of these films. Cap's one of your favorite characters. So a lot to live up to with this. Did it live up to your high expectations?
I did have high expectations in this, like you mentioned. One time we did a top 5 countdown. Civil War came in as my number 2 all-time favorite story. And I think Cap is actually legitimately my favorite character. But I would say absolutely it lived up to the hype. This was one of the rare occasions where I had huge expectations and it even blew past those. I was extremely pleased with the film. I think it was a perfect mix of, they did a great job mixing the action and the drama. Like even the down times I thought were really intense and entertaining. Like I really enjoyed how they laid out the conflict. They set it up beautifully. They had some discussions and some debates where they're sitting down discussing, the Sokovia Accords, and it just kind of gave you a clear understanding of why there's this rift in the team, and there's people that disagree, and you could make points for each side, and it's very clearly laid out, and you kind of can understand where each side is coming from. Unlike some other movies, I think the conflict was clearly laid out for you, and you understood why they were fighting, which is a huge part of it. Because coming into it, that's all I heard from people is like, "Why are they fighting? Why are the Avengers fighting?"
I've also heard that a lot, especially with older people.
Yeah, and I'm like, "Go to the movie, like watch the movie." Like, so I was glad they took the time to do that, and then it wasn't like campy. Like it was very nice how they did it. They took some careful steps to do that, and it worked out great. Like I mentioned, the action was sprinkled throughout. Like it was
sounds delicious.
I didn't think there was any real lulls in the action. Like you sort of had a good fight scene, and then you had some intense backstory going on, and then you kind of gently roll into another fight scene, and it was a nice little roller coaster throughout. There were no huge boring parts in it or anything like that. Pretty much the norm that we've come to expect from Marvel, and especially the Russo brothers. I'm really, really coming to like their stuff. As I mentioned before, I think Winter Soldier was possibly my favorite Marvel movie so far, and I think this may have passed it out. So definitely very pleased when I walked out.
I guess it's kind of boring when you all agree, but I think we might find some things we disagree with the movie, but when you're just talking about general thoughts, I'll make it 3 for 3, and I really loved it as well. Going into this, like, I love the Marvel movies. Winter Soldier, I felt that was maybe going to be the peak of the Marvel films. I liked Age of Ultron. I feel like I liked that more than most, but still, it was a letdown compared to the Avengers. And Ant-Man was good, but, wasn't nearly on par, I would think, with, like, Iron Man or something of that nature. So I was wondering is Marvel just going to get to the point where, they just simply can't top themselves? They're not going to be able to do another Avengers movie. You're not going to be able to do another Winter Soldier. And what they ended up doing is kind of doing both with Civil War. They took the spectacle that we got with the Avengers and took, the down-to-the-earth, like, story-driven aspects of Winter Soldier and put it all into this film. As Greg mentioned, there's a lot here going on. There's a lot of moving parts, a lot of characters, a lot of things. It's like juggling while, basically just like juggling, I guess. Tons of different...
Juggling is pretty tough just by itself, Dan. You don't need to add anything extra.
That's true. I can't juggle, so I don't know why to try to add in extra things to it, I guess. But
you could ride a unicycle while you're doing it.
True, on top of a trampoline that's like on a high wire and high winds, and I don't know. So just keep doing it. Basically,
with Jean-Claude Van Damme doing a split on your shoulder.
Exactly. We can go. We can keep going. And all that's trying to do what they're doing. And I felt the Russo brothers really handled it well. It felt like everyone had a purpose for the most part. No one felt forced in to a great extent, and it just seemed to really just all tie together very nicely. Ultimately, like Greg mentioned, I think there's a lot going on here, but at the heart of it, it's still, I think, Captain America's story, and it's his dilemma that he's facing. And yes, Iron Man has one too, but I feel Steve Rogers I think has a greater conflict to overcome because he has these accords going on. He certainly there's other aspects of other surprises that occur that I think affect his psyche in a lot of ways. And then obviously he has the life of Winter Soldier and what that means and trying to deal with all that. So I think there's a lot for him to deal with. And I think that's good because a lot of people tend to complain that Steve Rogers or Captain America is a boring character. And I don't think he is. I rally against that assessment. And I think when you put him in a dilemma like this, you can actually take some advantages of having a guy who's very amoral and a Boy Scout when you're putting him in a situation where it's very difficult to figure out what is truly the right thing to do. But yeah, so I loved it. I felt that it was on par with the best Marvel stuff. I still think I like Winter Soldier a tad more, though I might enjoy it more on a second watch because there's so much going on. I feel like I probably missed a couple action beats here and there. So it was a good time.
I just like how they were able to keep so much focus on Captain America with all these other characters in the movie. I mean, that was astonishing to me. You have essentially, I think there were like 16 major characters in this. And obviously, the two teams were like 12 of them. But just to like balance it out, like there's a huge focus on Cap and Bucky's relationship, Cap and Tony. But it was like you really get inside Captain America's heart, kind of like to see like what makes him tick, you know?
You'll be in my heart. You'll be in my heart.
I feel like
that's what I think of when I hear Captain America.
I feel like they could have they had an opportunity there to play that song, but they didn't. So it's a missed opportunity.
You get a chance to see what makes him tick. Like he mentions about his faith in people and Peggy's words kind of echoing through Sharon and stuff like that, and you really start to see like how steadfast Steve is in his beliefs and when he feels something is right, and he always has his mind in the big picture. Like he knows things are going to work out at the end as long as you stand up for what you feel is right. And I think this more than any other of the films he's appeared in has really gotten down to the heart of the matter, I guess, to phrase another song.
Don't know that one. I'm sorry.
Been trying to get down to the heart of it. Okay, never mind.
I think we touched upon this a little bit, but we did see some huge new additions with this film of Black Panther and Spider-Man, which I haven't talked about. How do you guys feel that they were incorporated within this movie? Because you have some major characters there with Spider-Man and Black Panther, maybe not as major to the general audience as he is to comic book fans. And with everything going on, did you feel like they fit without it feeling like a forced tie-in where we had with some of the other Marvel films, or did they feel like they naturally flowed within the story that was being told?
I think Black Panther kind of fit more than Spider-Man did, but they still did a halfway decent job of getting him in there because I guess Tony's side just needed another person on the team, I guess. I don't know. I didn't feel like Iron Man or the Spider-Man's appearance was as warranted as Black Panther's. I felt like Black Panther was more intermeshed within the movie with having his father in there and everything, and kind of his origin story in there for the most part. Spider-Man, not really. He was just kind of like, oh, here's you fighting a bad guy in an ugly costume. Let me help you with that.
Yeah. Do you feel the same way, Chuck?
Yeah, I mean, I loved everything about Spider-Man, don't get me wrong, like huge geek moments and everything. But when you actually stop to think about it, it did kind of feel a little forced. The guy in their team basically to kind of hold their own against Cap's team. But Black Panther I thought fit perfectly. Although there were some things with this character I could talk about later on, so I'll get into. But I thought he fit well overall. And I guess one of the reasons I liked him in there is because like he provided sort of a different perspective for the war that's going on. Like he wasn't really on a side per se. Like he mentions he's against the politics and everything, but when you see like the sort of the round table discussions with the Avengers as they're debating these accords and everything, you're able to watch all those characters and their opinions unfold, and it kind of makes it personal, and you could find at least one of the characters to identify with. And if you can't, you kind of have Black Panther there seeing this random chaos that had this terrible tragedy that happened to him, and maybe you can kind of identify with that. So there's sort of something for everybody. Like, you can kind of identify with this war and what's going on. I think they pretty much have it covered from every angle. Even with Spider-Man just being dragged in out of random, like, he was kind of just sucked in, like, hey, come fight for us, and you don't even know what you're fighting for. But most of the bases were covered there, and you could kind of relate somehow, I think, at least. And unlike some other movies that you really don't understand why they're fighting, you can't put yourself in that situation and say you would do the same thing. Whereas this, it's giving you the liberty to choose what you would do, because there are clear options and there's opinions to back up those options and things like that. So I think having him in there just sort of added to all of that. And I love the arc that he goes through too. So
yeah, I think it's interesting that you mentioned clear options. I think there were clear options, but it was, in a sense, they're not clear because there's so strong points on both sides that it's hard to. There's no clear right or wrong answer. But I mean,
clear's the wrong. I mean,
well defined. I think. I get what you're saying, and that's what
well-defined sides, but kind of muddy, murky decision.
Yeah, you understood the motivations behind why characters are making the choices they would, even why someone like Black Widow would side with Iron Man over Steve Rogers. She does kind of give an explanation of the reasoning behind it, and even though she chooses that side, that conflict is still there. I think with all of them in some way, And what's interesting is that I felt with, oddly, with the registration in the comic book, the Superhero Registration Act, I was completely on the side of Cap, but in this, I felt even was better at giving Iron Man legitimacy in what he was doing, more so than the comics. Like in the comics, I felt like he was being, for lack of a better word, being a huge prick. And here,
he was a total asshole in the comics.
Yeah, with here, there's more, I think, sympathy behind it. And as Greg mentioned in my review, what I like about Tony Stark, and I think what the Russos understand about Tony Stark, is that he is an egomaniac, but he's an egomaniac in the sense of he takes as much credit as he can, but he takes as much blame as he can, which is why he will so drastically change his opinions on things or make huge changes, like shutting down the weapons manufacturing of his company when weapons are in the wrong hands, or while he'll destroy all of his armor when he feels like he's gone beyond that, or why he'll build Ultron to try to save the world because he feels it's necessary after the events of the Avengers. And in this, although the moment itself I didn't completely buy, where you see what kind of springboards his reaction and his agreement to signing these accords, I felt like I understood it, and I thought it was a good way of making me almost I felt in some ways I backed him more than I did Cap, though I understood Cap's side. I thought okay, this is making a lot of sense. This is I get why they're doing this, but was that what I think was interesting about this? There was no, minus the villain that was there was no overly villain side. Even General, or I guess Secretary of State General Ross, when he was making his proclamation of why they should do this, he didn't seem all that evil, or he wasn't like the Ross we saw in the Incredible Hulk film. He felt rather, I thought he gave a good legitimate case, and I thought okay, yeah, that makes sense. And I thought that made it even stronger, and I made the conflict felt earned when they actually decide to finally start punching each other in the face. The big thing going into this was Team Iron Man or Team Cap. Did you feel like you felt more to one side, or was it just you really just were enjoying the conflict as?
I was just enjoying the conflict as a whole, but I was going towards Cap just because I felt like Tony was being a little bit too critical of himself and the people around him. You can't save everybody. It's impossible for everybody, even superheroes. So it's he had to kind of take a step back, which I think that's what Cap was doing. He understands that with dangerous people around, you can't win all the time. You can't win 100% even. Like, you could win 3/4 of the way of what you want. Sometimes you could win 100%, but it's not always going to work out that way. And it's still weighing on his conscience and everything. But like, are we going to put soldiers in jail that are over fighting wars for us when they come back? Because it's just like they're doing the best they can. Like,
yeah, well, that's why that was a great moment with him and Scarlet Witch too. And I think when they were sitting on the bed talking, and he was kind of talking about that, and like, if you sort of give up because you lost someone, and then maybe next time nobody gets saved, which has a lot of weight to it.
They said it way more eloquent than I did. Right,
but it's it's the same effect. Like they definitely laid that out for you and made it understood. But I was definitely enjoying the conflict for the most part. Like, I wasn't quite sure what was going to happen. I had like some concerns of what was going to happen at the end. But I was pretty much all in for Team Cap because I knew the circumstances for the most part, as we all pretty much did. I was more, even in the comic, I was more on Cap's side and everything, but like you mentioned, the comic was easier to root for Cap because Tony was being a total dick. So, but even in this movie, I thought, like, he started out kind of for the right reasons, but he really started coming off the rails as it went on. I thought, and he started acting more and more douchey as it went on, in my opinion. So it was kind of easier as the movie goes on to sort of root for Cap's team. Just the fact that I love how, well, I shouldn't say that. That's kind of a spoiler thing, but I'll just say there's some switching that goes on, and I love everything behind that, and that's exciting too. So it just makes for a great ride,
It's interesting you say you felt that Tony Stark became more douchey as it went on. Because I don't know. Maybe I would see that more in a second viewing, but I didn't get that to start off with. And what I thought was interesting, and I agree regarding like the blame for the collateral damage, how it's you're kind of blaming something that's inevitable. But I thought it was set up beautifully because what you saw happen were the Avengers vigilantes, as they say, were they too powerful, or were they acting? Did they need some oversight? And I think that was, to me, the most interesting debate going on, because it does make sense when you think about it. Would you really want this force of superpower beings having complete say and basically being able to go to wherever they want, whenever they want? And what you do see then, collateral damage that may have not caused if they weren't there. Yeah, maybe they were trying to solve a bigger problem and maybe saved many more lives than that were lost. But I do think that idea of having no control over them whatsoever can be problematic. So I thought was the key that made this one work over, say, other movies and and debates and that had superheroes fighting each other.
Yeah. It's definitely easy to see each side of it, like I mentioned before, but it's tough to disagree with Cap's viewpoint as well about how, like, if they don't want you to go to a certain place, like, how can you just turn your back on people dying and stuff like that? And that's especially with him, like you mentioned, why it was such a great focal point of the movie for him, with this being such a tough decision for him. Like, yeah, that's what made it so enjoyable, because it's down to this like extremely intense decision. It's like, you want to do the right thing and be sort of governed and kept in line and check and everything, whatever you want to call it, but you don't want to turn your back on terrible situations. And unfortunately, it reflects things that happen in real life, and that stuff happens every day. So that's what makes it exciting, and it makes it so kind of gut-wrenching, or whatever you want to say.
Yeah, I think that's kind of the key difference between like Stark and Steve Rogers, where I think Steve Rogers is more of a realist, where you have Stark, who's more of the futurist, where he wants everything to work a specific way, and like and if it doesn't, he wants to do everything to fix it. Where Steve Rogers, I think he understands that there's going to be bumps along the way, and some things are unavoidable. So because of that, just that fundamental divide is just going to, I think, be the key difference between them, which makes them great when they're together, but also why they can so easily the part when you put them in such a situation like this. So
yeah, I think it's important not to overlook the fact that you look at how many people Cap has lost over the years. Like,
yeah,
and he's pretty much lost everyone that he's known from his old life. All the Howling Commandos that he fought with and everything. He has a ton of respect for all those guys that he fought with and all his old war buddies and everything. And he knows the sacrifice that they gave for their country and for the right thing. So like he's kind of, I don't want to say used to it, not that you ever get used to it, but he respects that sacrifice. And I think Tony's just like he's a little bit more fragile, sort of, in that he doesn't want to lose anybody. Like he's so traumatized by the loss of his parents, and he really can't stand the weight on his conscience of another loss, that sort of thing. But Cap has lost so many people, but it's not in vain. He knows what they've done, and he respects that, and he moves on.
Yeah, I always feel like Steve Rogers is someone who can't survive without war, where Tony Stark is the man always trying to end it, though in a way maybe not. I think there's a great, like, I love one of my favorite parts of the film is the conversation that they have like right before the Accords, and like they're in, I think it's, I guess not SHIELD headquarters, but they're in like almost like a war room, and they're just talking about how basically both of them can't quit this lifestyle. Even they're basically kidding themselves when they try to say that they can, which is, I thought was a good point that they made when Stark even references like Iron Man 3 and like how like, yeah, he did that, but he was just really kidding himself. So anything general you guys want to talk into before we get into specifics and spoil the hell out of this movie?
What did you think about the length? I know they said this was the longest Marvel movie to date. Did you notice it being longer? Because I certainly didn't.
No, it was super quick for me. Like I did not notice the length whatsoever. I don't know about Greg, if that was an issue for you at all.
It went by in a flash. Wrong publisher, sorry. No, it went by really easy and really quick. It felt like we weren't in there very long at all.
At no point did I question, like, I'm just going to go over, wonder what time it is. Like, at no point did that even enter my mind. So I'd be totally fine if they did that more often.
Every time I felt like I was maybe a small lag, like another huge thing would come in and like completely re-energize it. Like right when Spider-Man comes into the film, like I think it was right at the right time, because it was getting super serious, and it was like, you needed some sort of reprieve, and that came in. I think it just brought entire new life to it. And then you had the airport sequence shortly after that, which I thought was freaking amazing. I think it goes down as one of the best action sequences in all comic book history. It just, the way it was handled, and just all the different powers were used in fun ways. It was funny and heartfelt, and I don't know. It was everything I would want in a Civil War movie, basically.
Yeah.
All right. Well, I think we want to. I think there's a lot of stuff nipping at the bit that we want to get into regarding specifics. So, if you are that Walmart cashier or the 13 other people who have not seen Captain America: Civil War, probably want to stop, go back, and do something else, because we're going to get into nifty diffy spoilers. So,
nifty diffy
spoilers.
Nifty diffy sat on a wall.
So
nifty diffy had a great fall.
It did.
It did. So, Chuck, I think you were going to bring something up previously that was a spoiler, but you wanted to hand back. Maybe we can start there.
Yeah, it was in reference to somewhat characters sort of switching sides in a way. And I wanted to talk about specifically Black Widow and Black Panther. I guess you could say, I mean, they didn't switch sides per se. It's not like in the middle of the fight they stopped and was like, wait, this is wrong, and then started fighting the other guy. But you see Black Widow kind of stop Black Panther and let Steve and Bucky take off in the Quinjet so they can get to Moscow to stop Zemo. But you kind of look at her scenes and the way she's really apprehensive about the fight to begin with. Like, even when they're at the airport and they're running towards each other, she's kind of the one that lets out this big sigh, and she's like, oh, this is going to be interesting, or something to that effect. And like, she's totally unsure about it. Like, she's really not sure what she wants to do yet. And like, you could obviously tell her closeness to Cap when she, on her way to Vienna, she stops at London And she mentions to Cap about the signing, and he says, "Why are you here?" And she's like, "Well, I didn't want you to be alone." Like, so they, they're clearly referencing how close they've gotten since the missions they've run together and the time they spent in Winter Soldier and everything like that. So I liked that dynamic a little bit, how they were kind of working with their relationship a little bit. And then obviously you see back at the Avengers compound, you see Black Widow and Tony Stark kind of having that little discussion. And that's the moment she kind of like really like gets ticked off at Tony and, sees that he's kind of like, I don't know, in my opinion, he's kind of getting a little, I don't want to say crazy, but he's kind of getting a little obsessive and stuff like that. And, she obviously tells him, "I'm not the one that has to watch my back," and stuff like that. So whether anyone else felt like that or not, I don't know. But
I think she did too, Chuck.
Yeah, I think she kind of just felt this loyalty to Cap, and like, she just felt the need to let him do what was right, what needed to be done in the situation. And obviously depended on the situation, but they happen to be facing the threat of 5 more even deadlier Winter Soldiers. So, but also, Black Panther at the end of the film, we see him kind of give up his quest for vengeance and everything, and in the post-credit scene, he's sort of doing a favor for Bucky and Steve by keeping Bucky there and protecting him and everything, and even vowing to really buckle down and protect him if anyone should come for him, and if Ross sends anybody to find them. And he has the great line where he says, "Let them come," or "Let them try," something like that. So I thought,
and also I like the part in there where he said both the Winter Soldier, Bucky, and my father were victims. They were both kind of taken advantage of. And
yeah, I thought that was interesting, how he came around and came to realize that and stuff. And I guess at that point it was, I don't know if it was like he's not into the politics like we discussed, but he's noticing that there was a similarity between Bucky and his father, and they were caught in this crossfire thing. So he's kind of doing that as a courtesy because he believed it was the right thing to do. So he's kind of more with Cap at this exact moment in time, but that doesn't have to stay that way. But I just thought it was interesting how that kind of happened. And obviously Rhodey's with Stark till the end, and he kind of reaffirms his stance on it at the end, and he's not budging at all. So you kind of have like Stark, Rhodey, and Vision left on their team, because Spider-Man is even a question mark to me because he really didn't even know why he was fighting, which I thought was kind of funny, because see the exchange where he's like, "Oh yeah, he just told me that he needed help and that we were doing the right thing." And it's like you realize he has no clue what this is about and he's fighting for and everything. He's just kind of doing what he's told.
He's trying to impress Tony Stark.
Exactly. That's kind of his mentor, his guy he's looking up to. He really wants to impress him. He has an interest in technology just like him. They have a lot of things in common. So yeah, that's understandable. But
yeah, I like that arc that the Panther does have. And someone important has to die. I feel like every Marvel character or every comic book character, parents don't last very long. And I thought it was intriguing watching him go through this. And in a way, he felt almost like he felt more Batman than Batman did in Batman v Superman. Like how he just kind of would strike at the right moments. He kind of investigated the situation, and he was like lurking in the shadows, looking for the right opportunity to kind of claim his vengeance. And I've been waiting for Black Panther forever. Like I remember years, like one of the first podcasts, or early in the podcast, we did like an episode talking about what we want to see Marvel future, like what movies we want to see come out. And I was one of my first ones I wanted to see was the Black Panther movie, and I cannot be more ecstatic for what we got. Like I didn't know how Chadwick Boseman would do in the role, and he freaking nails it. Like he just, from the voice to the way he carries himself, in the look of the Black Panther, the costume is awesome. I hope they don't change anything about it. You wouldn't think that would work, but yeah, I just enjoyed, and just the way he would move, and he felt different. Like his movements are different compared to others. Like he would, like just the way he fought, and I think that was a good way to differentiate him compared to everyone else. And I don't know, I'm really excited for what they were doing. I think they really introduced him and made him really a kick-ass character from the beginning, and how he would be able to kind of go toe-to-toe with Cap and kind of hold his own, which was like a dream come true watching that happen. I was like, yes, more of that, please. I want to see more of that.
Well, Chadwick Boseman's good at that stuff because I remember watching the Jackie Robinson movie, and he's good at those subtle, like, sort of body English and body maneuvers and stuff like that, because he really nailed down the style of running that Jackie Robinson had, like running the bases and stuff. He had a very unique style, and he got that down to a T. And I think it kind of what you're talking about is the same thing he did for this movie, like very, very unique fighting style and the way he carried himself, and it really like came through and kind of shined.
He felt like a king. Like he felt like he would be like a king and warrior. Like he had that.
Yeah.
And he was James Brown too. So like he's got the guy got some range for sure. So
I don't know about you guys, but I really wasn't sure of how they were gonna bring him in, because I don't know, for whatever reason I had this notion in my mind that they were gonna introduce him and he would already be the king of Wakanda. I guess I wasn't sure that they were going to have his father in there. I'm not against it that they did it in any way. I think it was very well done. But for whatever reason, I was thinking he would come in and he'd already be the king of Wakanda, and they do something in his country and just kind of piss him off. But I think their way was better than the way that I had it in my head. So
I thought they were going to tie it back to the Hulk Iron Man fight from Age of Ultron somehow, like, because I thought somehow like that would help bring him in. Oddly, it wasn't that brought them in. It was the fact that Ultron used stolen vibranium that caused Wakanda to come out and go in, which I thought was good, because it's like, why is this country suddenly now appearing? And it made sense. It's because, okay, well, the mineral that they're known for helped almost destroy the world, so they could see that they needed to, maybe go out and do some damage control or whatever you want to call it. But yeah, that's how I thought. I thought they would incorporate it that way, or the Winter Soldier would maybe kill someone, or like when he's under control, and that would help get him involved. But yeah, I wasn't totally sure, but I think I thought in my mind it would somehow tie into that Hulk Iron Man fight from the last movie. I don't know about you, Greg.
I really didn't have a grand vision of how he would come in, really. I'm not a huge Black Panther fan from the comics or anything, so I wasn't really coming in with the stance. I kind of know about him a little bit of his back history and everything. So I really didn't have a notion set in my mind of how I expected him to come in, and I think they did a great job with how he came in. It fit in the movie very well, fit with his story, and like I said before, it made him more seamlessly plug into the role, especially as opposed to Spider-Man, how they brought him in. And I thought Boseman did a great job with the character. I thought he fit the characteristics that I know Black Panther for. And like you guys were saying, I thought the movements that he did with the fight scenes kind of fit with the character and fit with the role of someone that would be named Black Panther.
Yeah. I cut you off before, Chuck.
I just had a question. I was wondering if I was the only one that had an issue with this particular part of Black Panther's character, but I sort of had a little bit of issue with this revenge path that they set him on. I never really pegged Black Panther for a character that would be big on vengeance or anything like that. I figured with him being royalty and the way he carries himself and sort of the honor code that he has, very similar to guys like Captain America and things like that, I wouldn't think of him as someone who would go crazy into this path of revenge that he wants to avenge his father's death by killing Bucky, and I never really thought of it that way. I guess I wasn't too crazy about it at the beginning of the movie, but I like where it ended up though, because obviously when he follows them to Moscow and he hears the exchange between Zemo and Cap and Iron Man and stuff, he obviously puts everything together and realizes what happens. But I mean, I like how it ended up, but I guess I was just a little bit shocked. I was a little bit thrown for a loop there because I never pegged him for something like that. What do you guys think about that?
Well, I think it's just that he's young. He was still a prince when he started off at the beginning of this movie, and he's still trying to fit into the role of a king or grow into that I think you were looking for, where he wouldn't be taking revenge. I think he started off a little bit different than you expected, but then grew into that role as the story went on. So I thought it did a really good job with that.
I guess in a way, for him, maybe in his eyes, he wasn't seeing it as revenge, more of a duty in the sense of honoring his father. This man took his life, so it was his duty to protect his father. Now he must then fulfill that duty in this way by avenging him. And I don't think in the character's mind, it was as motivated as revenge as he realized until I think at the end when he was able to witness what Tony was going through and the revenge that he had, and come to the realization of what was really driving him. And I think he was fooling himself and thinking it was more so the duty of Black Panther, like you mentioned. Like Black Panther was the warrior protector of Wakanda, and he failed in that regard. So this was his way of overcoming that or trying to fix that. And then once he saw that wasn't really what he was doing, I think he kind of changed his path and realized, okay, this is where redemption needs to occur, and this is I'm not really fixing anything. I'm letting it consume me. So I actually like that arc. I thought, and we have seen him in the comics not be afraid of revenge, in the sense of with like Namor, like him, they've had their past and their history, and he's certainly done certain actions which were in response to things that would happen in Wakanda and trying to kill Namor, and when they had their conflict in New Avengers, and just thinking of the Black Panther series for a while in the 2000s, I felt like there was a revenge plot in there too. But I don't know. That's why I had no issue with it, to be honest with you.
Yeah, I guess I don't know. I guess just because I was kind of thrown for a loop in the beginning there, and maybe I thought too much into the line too, where he told Black Widow, he's like, "I am not my father," and I guess that kind of I don't know, maybe I didn't take it the right way or something, but I was like, oh wow, like, because his father seemed like such an honorable man, and he was a stand-up guy, and he said, "I'm not my father," and then he goes down this revenge path, and I'm like, wow, like, who is this guy? Like, it's not a Panther that I recognize. Not that I'm a huge Black Panther fan, but I agree. I love where it ended up, because I think there's a sort of a deeper meaning in his line where he says, "I'm done letting vengeance consume me." I think he's talking about the present situation, but I think he's also talking about as a whole. He's done letting vengeance consume him. So I think that was a great moment that they took him to. So it worked out in the end.
I was also curious. We didn't talk about him yet. Was that of Zemo? And I know, Greg, you're a huge Zemo fan. I know he didn't have the purple hat or purple whatever you want, mask. Hat, Jesus.
He didn't get it glued to his face.
And he didn't have a huge amount of screen time. I guess this isn't necessarily Baron Zemo, but what did you think of Daniel Bruhl as Zemo and like how the character was handled?
Not the Zemo that we're really used to, but I thought they fit him more for the story, and I thought they made him a little bit more of an interesting character. He wasn't a villain out looking to take over the world like we have been getting. It's more personal that these Avengers came into his life and had a negative influence where he thought they were a positive influence at first. Then all of a sudden they came in and they took his wife from him, essentially, and he didn't think they paid for it, and so he's going out and he's going to make them pay. So I thought that was a really interesting concept. I don't think it's really Baron Zemo, but he did have that intelligence and that connivingness that kind of would go towards Zemo. So I was kind of on the fence about him a little bit, and I'd like to see maybe him transform more into the Zemo that we know. So I'd like to see him in another Marvel movie somewhere if it makes sense. But I thought he did an overall good job. His acting was really well done. I remember him from what's the Tarantino film, the one with Brad Pitt. Yes, that one. He's definitely got great acting chops, and I'd love to see him in more.
Chuck, what are your thoughts on Zemo and Daniel Bruhl?
I guess at first watch, I wasn't really crazy about him. I thought he was good enough. I don't know if it was the actor or if it was the different scenes that they gave him, but the first time around that I watched it, I really wasn't enthused about him at all. He didn't do much for me. But the second time around that I watched the movie, I think I really came to appreciate him a lot more. And I started thinking about, for once in a superhero movie, the villain actually wins, if you think about it.
Yeah, that's kind of interesting.
he actually succeeds in splitting up the Avengers, even though nobody got killed or anything like that. But there are still Avengers teams, but he did basically split them right down the center, and that's what he sought out to do. So he definitely succeeded in what he set out to do, and I think that makes him very formidable. And in a way, it's a lot like the comics, even though there were some major differences from his character in the comics. But in a way, he's a lot like the character in the comics, being so formidable. Like in the Under Siege story where they stormed the Avengers mansion and like systematically taking out the Avengers. Like, he is a great mastermind and a strategist and stuff like that. He's a very formidable adversary for Cap, and other than Red Skull, he's probably his greatest enemy. So I think in that respect, he definitely lived up to it. So I came to appreciate him a lot more when I saw the film again.
He's obviously not the most dynamic character ever. Like, he's in a way is basically window dressing. He's there to like move the plot along. But I thought that made sense, because I felt like I didn't want a villain to dominate this movie, or a villain to kind of get in the way of the true conflict. And I thought it was smart for the Russo brothers really just to create a character that was concise. Like, and I don't think concise is necessarily a bad thing. I don't necessarily think you always need a villain that is that is the person running the show. I don't think you need to have a Joker and Dark Knight in every film. And this, it made sense because there was everything else going on. Having this shadowy figure just kind of secretly pushing things and pushing the right buttons at the right time made sense. I will say, like, there is a lot of contrivances when it comes to his plan. Like, a lot of things have to work out very specifically for it all to kind of tie together the way it does. But I feel that's kind of the norm when it comes to comic books, to be honest with you. So I didn't have any issues. And during the film, since I wasn't really understanding completely in a good way, like, what was going on. Like, I thought I had the movie figured out. I'm like, okay, they're going to go and they're going to have this action set piece where they fight all these guys. I was actually kind of disappointed in a way. I'm like, well, Tony's going to find out that he's really behind it all. He's going to, team up with Cap, and they're going to get together and they're going to stop Zemo. And then Iron Man's going to try to bring in Winter Soldier, and Cap's going to say, no, you can't do that. They'll fight, and Winter Soldier will get away, and that'll be the end of it. When it goes the way it goes, and like we go into that, and they're all dead, I'm like, what the hell's going on? I'm like, okay, is he going to become like the Abomination and take all their power and become some sort of monster? And when you see the video, and I'm like, I got like not anxiety, but I'm like, holy like, it just started clicking. I realized what was going to happen. I'm like, oh my god, like, that's the Russos have given us two of the best surprises in the MCU so far, with the Hydra being behind all this other stuff, and then with Winter Soldier killing the parents of Tony Stark and what that meant. I thought that was a stroke of genius in the way it was set up from the beginning, from the moment you see Tony Stark as a young Robert Downey Jr. from Weird Science talking to the guy from Mad Men, like that scene, like how that all, like, I just thought that was there, and then how it all just came to this brilliant little, tied into this brilliant little bow at the end, and it really made a lot of sense. It was like the opposite of the Martha moment in Batman v Superman. Not to keep harping on that, but it's hard not to. And that you just, like, it just became this emotional reaction from Tony Stark. As we mentioned, he's this guy who is so his emotional state is always fragile to begin with, and when you see something like that, I bought completely the length he would go to kill this guy, like where he says the thing, he killed my mom. At the end of the day, I don't care if he was brainwashed, I don't care what happened, he killed my mom. I'm going to do what I need to do to kill him. I don't know what you guys thought of the final twist, if you guys enjoyed it as much as I did.
Oh, yeah, I thought that was spectacular, and I was definitely not expecting it at all. And I do agree, it was kind of like the Martha moment, but done well in this movie. But yeah, it was incredible, and it definitely improved the movie tons. I didn't mind where it was going, where you were kind of disappointed in it. I didn't mind it for the most part, but this definitely picked it up for me, and like it was a shot to the stomach to see all this. I'm like, what is she showing on that monitor? And then all of a sudden you start to notice, oh wait, that's the screen. Oh wait, his parents left. And you started to, like, as you were watching the monitor, you were like putting things together, and you're like, oh crap, this is Tony's parents. This isn't going to be good. And then you're going through your mind trying to figure out, well, how's Tony going to react to this? It's not going to be good. Like,
yeah. Chuck, what are your thoughts?
I did enjoy it as well. I thought it was kind of tough to see Tony react like that, knowing, how brainwashed Winter Soldier was, because I think like there was still hope for. Obviously, he's going to react and he's going to flip out and everything, but I think there's still hope for Cap to sort of calm him down and say, like, Tony, take it easy, like, because you see that actually happen. You see him turn to engage Bucky, and you see Cap kind of grab his arm and like stop him. But I think the moment that really pushed it over the edge and made him totally lose his shit was the fact that he felt betrayed by Cap because Cap knew and didn't tell him. And that's the moment for me that I think really sold it to me, because at that moment he's feeling obviously the betrayal by Bucky and what he did, but also by Cap, who he considered a friend and who kept one of the most important secrets from him. So I think that really pushed it over the edge for me, and I was able to definitely I bought it after that, because I'm like, okay, I could see where that would really send him over the edge too. So.
As a Cap fan, do you feel like that would be something Captain America would do? Like Steve Rogers would withhold that information? Or do you think like it's out of character for him to not tell Tony Stark?
I kind of thought about that a little bit after the first time I watched the movie. I feel like the true essence of Cap's character, I feel like he would have told him in some way. Like, I feel like he would have said, listen, Tony, Bucky was the soldier that was assigned to kill your parents. Obviously, they had him brainwashed, and try to sort of explain it somehow. I feel like he would at least try to, and tell him like, it's important to remember that it's not his fault. He couldn't control his actions, and he was a mercenary that was brainwashed and everything like that, and sort of diffuse it like at that point before it came to a head like this. I think Steve would have realized that would have been the thing to do, but like he mentions, he's trying to protect him because he doesn't want to hurt Tony. He's trying to be better friends with Tony, so he doesn't want to, if they're on edge from previous movies, he doesn't want to do this and like ruin the shot of them becoming friends. So I mean, I could kind of buy it, I guess. But
I bought it, but I did find it was a little out of character, and I was at first like, how did he even know that? Like, how did he even know it was him? Then I'm like, oh yeah, I'm Winter Soldier. When they find out about Hydra, they do talk about Tony Stark, and they don't explicitly tell him, but Cap's a smart enough guy to kind of put the pieces together to figure out it would most likely have to be Winter Soldier. So I liked how it tied back into that without really even telling you that's what it was doing. So, Chuck, you mentioned how at the end Zemo wins, and I did really like that, how it ends on a rather somber tone, which is different from any other Marvel film. The one thing though, like I thought that was a really great way to kind of end it, where you have it's almost Empire Strikes Back in the way where it feels like it really, not to compare it to that because I feel like a lot of people have, but just how the heroes are losing, like how can they overcome this? I don't know how you guys felt about this though. I felt a lot of that was lost though, and I got why they did it, but when you get Tony getting that letter from Steve Rogers, and that is a Steve Rogers thing to do, but I felt like if they ended it without that, it reminded me of how, not to do that alt comparison again, but how Batman v Superman ended with the dust rising off of the casket of Superman. Yeah, we know Superman's going to come back alive, but you don't necessarily have to show us that image. And I was wondering, like, would it be even more of an emotional wallop if it didn't end with that? Like, we're almost on a little bit of a lighter note. I don't know if you guys had the same issue at all, or if you were fine with it.
No, I think I was fine with that, like, because like you mentioned, that's a very, very Cap thing to do for him to send that letter, and just the exact wording that was in it. Like, if you need any of us, or if you need me, I'll be there. Like, I thought
I'll be there.
I thought that resonated more like with me anyway. Like, I really didn't have an issue with it. So I don't know. I guess it's a personal preference thing. But what do you think, Greg?
Yeah, I didn't mind it at all, and especially since it got an appearance by Stan Lee involved in there. I was very excited about that.
I was wondering what was coming. It was like it's a while. Like, we haven't seen him yet, so
possibly his best cameo ever.
Tony Stank.
I still go with Amazing Spider-Man when he's in the classroom and they're like doing all the crazy stuff behind him. I think that might still be my favorite Stanley cameo, and like the lizard and him are fighting.
I guess to switch gears a little bit, I did want to bring up something that I was kind of thinking about afterwards. Just thinking about the comic and how it compares to the movie. And I looked at trying to compare, if you remember in the comics, Tony's team sort of creates a clone of Thor. And I sort of related that a lot to Vision in this movie because there was a lot of striking similarities. It's a character that they created out of science. They created him with Jarvis programming and Ultron and the Mind Infinity Stone and things like that. So a lot of similarities there. And then I was looking at like just him sort of being a extremely powerful character on that team that's sort of careless and distracted and things like that. And you see the same result of that carelessness as Thor had in the comics when he killed Bill Foster. And to me, the Bill Foster in this movie was Rhodey. And he was the casualty of that carelessness that not necessarily that, like, I don't think Tony could have ever foreseen that happening. It's not like the comics where he definitely went too far with doing that. But I'm just saying there were a lot of pretty cool similarities when you think about it, with Rhodey kind of acting like the Bill Foster. And obviously we're glad that he didn't die. He was only paralyzed, hopefully only temporary paralyzed. But I just thought that was an interesting thing to think about. I don't know if you guys thought about that.
I did get that impression a little bit when you see a character basically, get hit with a beam of light and be severely injured, and that was, seeing Rhodey fall the way he did, that was pretty brutal, and especially like you see Falcon stop, and then Iron Man just let out his aggression on him, and I thought it was I thought he was gonna. I'm like, wow, maybe he's actually gonna die. The way it just, I'm like, wow, they're actually gonna kill him, and he is.
I thought so too, yeah.
And he is paralyzed, which is, I wonder how that's gonna, if they're gonna keep that. Like, can he just be in the suit and be okay?
Well, in the comics, he kind of turned into a little bit of a cyborg.
Yeah, I remember that.
Points. Yeah.
Then they stopped. I think they stopped that for a while. Like,
it was in between them, kind of like having interest in having the character around and not having the character around. Like it's his waning popularity, I think.
Yeah.
I was a little worried about Ant-Man, to be honest, or Giant Man as he became, because I'm like thinking, I'm thinking like, okay, they killed the Giant Man in the Civil War book one, but I'm like, well, they can't because they're doing Ant-Man and Wasp movie. So, but there was a little bit of time where I was kind of worried for him, especially when Vision kind of like phased through his chest, and I'm like, oh man, he's gonna shift his density like when he's in his heart and like kill him, and I was like, oh shit. But then they just turned it into a comedic moment where he's like, someone just flew in me.
Paul, I mean, there's a lot of people who were great, but Paul Rudd was great. I love when he's like, I'm shaking your hand for way too long, and I know you too. You're great. It's just like,
yeah.
He was a lot of fun, and the Giant Man sequence was great, and I loved how he like moved like Godzilla in like slow motion. That was awesome. That was a lot of fun.
And that I could actually buy too, because like just growing that huge, like you would think he would have trouble adjusting to it, and he would be moving really slowly because of his gigantic size. So, what do you guys think about how does Vision fit into the team now? Do you think they're gonna perceive him differently? Like, do you think there's gonna be sort of like some dirty looks? Do you think there's gonna be general disgust around him? Or are they gonna forgive him pretty quickly? Or how do you think that'll shake out?
I think for Vision, like definitely with more War Machine and Tony, they'll be cautious of him. I think Rhodey definitely more than Tony. Rhodey might even be scared of him coming down the line here and there. The others, like Cap's side, I don't think they'll have as much of being scared of him as other people. They might use it against him as like in the middle of an argument to bite back at him, kind of like say something you don't really mean kind of situation. And I'm interested to see what will develop with Vision and Scarlet Witch, because they kind of had a little bit of a romance thing going on there, which I was quite interested in. Didn't overpower through the story, but they just kind of hinted at it here and there, and it definitely fit with what was going on, I thought.
I thought Scarlet Witch and Vision were much better in this than they were in Age of Ultron. Like, I thought Scarlet Witch felt,
I agree.
Like, I don't know, there's more to her. I felt like they got a better hold of that character, even just with her powers. I think with the Vision, it is going to be that like looking over your shoulder type of thing. I think I read something about like people are wondering, does this mean he can't pick up Thor's hammer anymore, considering that he seems to be not fallible, and he has.
Yeah, that's a good point.
Like, is he becoming more and more human in a way? Does that distrust then? Does somehow Thanos maybe in the next Avengers movie use that in for his advantage, considering he has a gem? And I like how he pointed that out. There was a conversation he has about the gem and how he fears it and how he tries to control it and what it means. I still don't think they have a great grasp of how to use him in the movie. I think he's one of those characters where he's so powerful it's hard to figure out how to fit him in an action sequence with all these other characters. But I thought using Scarlet Witch and him were a good trade-off, like how they could kind of cancel each other out. And he also looked amazing in that sweater. Like that was a good look.
That was a good choice, yeah.
Yeah, it was just like, it's so odd that and he almost looks better in that than he does in his like normal uniform. So I do feel like they're going to go back to that moment. I would think you would have to when you have a team member paralyze another team member, and that team member is basically a child because he's only been alive for a year or two. I could see that having major effects going forward.
Well, I have a theory that I've been formulating about Vision, and I think like obviously we have two more Avengers movies coming up, and they're supposed to be even two very different movies. They said they even went as far as getting away from the Part 1 and Part 2 label. And I really do, like Greg mentioned about the relationship with Scarlet Witch and Vision, I think they're going to develop that a lot more. And I really loved that aspect. And they were playing with like his emotional feelings towards her. They were also dabbling with the emotion of regret when you see him sitting on the couch kind of flipping that chess piece, and it's like it's bothering him that he hurt Rhodey, so he's sort of feeling like these emotions that he's not supposed to feel. Those were kind of subtle things, but I thought they were really cool. Like I thought that was really neat. Picked up on the first watch, but the second time I watched it, like I really saw like how much it was bothering him that he hurt Rhodey. Like I'm not sure if it bothered him that he made a mistake or if it bothered him that he hurt somebody, but I took it as it bothered him that he hurt Rhodey and he hurt someone that was supposed to be considered his friend. Like he's a member of this team, and he let them down. So I thought that was interesting. They're sort of playing with that emotion, but I think they're going to develop him and Scarlet Witch more. But my theory in the end, and I think it's going to take place in the fourth Avengers movie, I think Thanos is actually going to kill Vision to get the Infinity Stone. And the reason I think that is just because Vision, being the Avengers, clearly their most powerful character, I think. Well, I could argue Hulk, I guess, but I think with having an Infinity Stone like in his head, he's considered their most powerful member, and I think that would be a huge statement if Thanos just offs him right at the beginning, and it would just be like this huge moment of like how powerful and how ruthless Thanos is. He just takes out their most powerful member like just like that. I think that would be a huge moment. So I guess that's what I'm kind of not necessarily hoping for, but it would make sense to me. So that's my theory so far, but I highly doubt that'll work out because it usually doesn't. But
hey, you've been right in the few things. Remember, you were spot on regarding the Sentinels in Days of Future Past, so they would tie into being part of Mystique, and that was right. So that was a good call. Yeah. So, I mean, I think that makes sense. It's gotta, Thanos is he's gonna get the Infinity Gauntlet, you would assume. So somehow Vision's gonna lose that gem, I would assume. So that I could see that be, like you said, it's a good way to immediately establish Thanos as the threat, because they really haven't done that yet. Like, I think for the casual fan, people who know Thanos, like, yeah, we know who he is, but in the films he really hasn't done much besides just like sit around and talk. So I think that would be something they could do for sure.
And think of the emotional impact it would have on Scarlet Witch, like especially if they spend the next movie getting a lot closer, and then he dies. Like she's gonna flip out and just say no more mutants, but something to that effect.
Oh wait, I can't do this in this movie because there are no mutants.
No more enhanced, I guess.
No more metas.
No more foxes, so we can get the rights back of everything. So.
Right.
Yeah, I could see. I mean, that's a good question just going forward where they're going to go with this, because I guess at this point, the only thing that could bring them back together would be that of a world-changing event. I don't know, but I also wonder if we'll get another Cap movie, considering there's never been a fourth installment of an individual film. You know, Iron Man 3 stopped after the third one. Looks like Thor stopping after the third one. So, I would be for another Cap film. They seem to be the best movies of this franchise. So,
yeah, I don't know. Like, obviously, we have Doctor Strange and we have Guardians yet to go. We have the Spider-Man, which I know Tony Stark's going to appear in the Spider-Man movie. And I'm kind of thinking Cap might appear, maybe even briefly, but I don't know. It just seemed like they were going that way with their little exchange in the movie. But I think we're kind of set with this rift now. And you're kind of set up well for Thanos to come into the picture, because he's going to come in at a time where the team is divided and they're going to have no plan of action against someone this powerful, and they're just going to be scrambling to get things together, and they're going to kind of be forced to come back together and put things aside. I think it's a good place to leave it with Thanos coming into the picture. I don't know about you guys.
Yeah, I think it's smart. I mean, where things can't get worse, then they get worse. So that's a good way to go. And I could see Cap. Does Black Panther come before the next Avengers film? I forget the order, but I could see.
I'm not sure.
I don't know the order, but
I think it's the same year, but I'm not sure if it's before or after. We have Captain Marvel, which actually that happens after, I think. But didn't they announce that Captain Marvel will appear in the first Avengers: Infinity War?
I'm not sure. I don't know.
I know nothing.
Only thing I remember hearing is that Inhumans has been pushed back indefinitely, if it will ever happen. So I wonder if they're just considering. I wonder if they're restructuring and changing things, considering the Infinity Wars films are getting name changes. If they're just looking and thinking, okay, let's change things around, and based upon, which is fine. I think it makes sense if if you feel like you have a better path and things make more sense to go a different direction. I would say do it. So, is there anything else you guys wanted to bring up that we did not discuss?
I guess a couple of little things. You mentioned Black Panther's fighting skills. I thought they were awesome, but I also thought they did a great job on Captain America's fighting skills.
Yeah,
they developed them a lot in Winter Soldier. Obviously, there's a lot of great scenes in that one. The elevator scene being my favorite, but this one, like, you see him get the best of Spider-Man. You see him have a good fight with Panther, but eventually gets the edge over him. You see him fighting a lot of different characters, and just crazy. Even the sequence in the beginning when they were in Wakanda, and him fighting Crossbones and stuff like that.
I love the moment he had where he skipped the in the beginning sequence, like the shield twice, and hit the dude in the head against the wall or something like that. But
yeah, that's pretty awesome.
And then you had Spider-Man's line about doesn't obey the law of physics whatsoever. I'm like, that's so a Spider-Man line. Thank you for So.
Yeah, that was good. I like that little exchange they had too, where not only them talking, when he asked him where he's from, he says Queens, and he's like Brooklyn, and he's just kind of he knows he's gonna cross paths with him again. You know what I mean? He knows he's a good kid deep down, so he's pretty sure that down the road somewhere they're gonna be working together. Despite what's happening right now, I think Cap has the foresight to see that, but I also thought he had the foresight to realize that how strong Spider-Man was by just tangling him with a little bit. And, he really didn't know the limits of his strength, but he kind of knew that he was very strong. And when he sort of dropped that huge trailer thing on it, he knew Spider-Man could hold that, but he knew he couldn't do anything else while he was holding it. So it was sort of a neat tactical thing to kind of keep him in one spot. And I thought that was pretty cool too.
Yeah.
It was neat. It was neat too how they kind of paid homage to the Spidey sense. I don't know if you guys caught that.
I felt like he was. I don't know if I felt they did it, but they did it with almost like the way they did Daredevil's powers in his show, where they you saw his reaction, the way he could catch a punch or do things so quickly, but necessarily I don't know if they did. I didn't catch it if they did anything that anything visual, but beyond that I didn't notice.
I thought there was one very specific moment when he was when he was in the airport battling with Bucky and Falcon, and he's kind of up in the swinging through the rafters and stuff. And I think I think he was kind of fighting with Falcon, and Bucky throws something. I don't know what it was, a big hunk of metal or something, and it was kind of coming from behind him, and Spider-Man was like, "Uh-oh," and he kind of turned around and saw it coming. So I was like, "Oh, there's the spider sense." Like he knew something was wrong, and he turned around and avoided it and stuff. So I thought that was pretty cool.
Did not notice that.
See, the benefit of seeing it twice. We've only seen it once, so.
Yeah.
Well, I actually saw that the first time.
Of course. Gotta throw that in there. Gotta like, yeah.
But there's other stuff I didn't pick up on the first time. So it's just what you have to be thinking of at the time, because sometimes you're thinking about the scene before and you're not, you're a little distracted. So
yeah, I think too there was a lot of great sequences, but one I think it's not getting talked about enough is the stairway sequence, like that escape, and how amazing that was when you had like Winter Soldier getting like a batarang and start just kicking out of people. Like that was awesome. Like how and you saw them try to go out of their way to not kill people, which was cool. Though they do kill people a good deal in these movies, in the Marvel films, because Falcon straight up shoots people in the face. But I'm surprised you don't hear much complaints regarding that when it comes to Marvel films, because there was a video out there regarding Iron Man's kill count. It's pretty high in the Marvel movies, but I don't know if it's just because it's part. I guess it's more the way they do it, or what have you. Or considering they're getting shot at in the middle of war, that it's more acceptable. So I don't know.
Yeah, and then Falcon drops the 2 bombs on the guys that were behind the truck.
And I think we kind of talked about this already, but I guess we can maybe end this. Where would you rank this within the Marvel lore? Do you put this on the top already? Do you is it top 3? Is it better than the other Avengers? What are your thoughts on that, Greg?
Yeah, I definitely put it in like my top 3, I think. I'm not sure where exactly it would go, but it's definitely around my top 3 there.
Chuck, I remember right after the movie ended, I think your words were, "I have a new favorite film." So is that the case?
Well, let me start by saying there's a lot of movies in my top 3.
When it comes just the Marvel Cinematic Universe movies,
I definitely have it up there. I'm thinking it's number 1 right now. Like I mentioned, I really enjoyed Winter Soldier a lot. The first Avengers and Guardians, they were all top notch for me. But I think with my love of the story beforehand, coupled with the fact of getting down to, really getting inside Cap's head and inside his heart and seeing what he's all about, and him being a favorite character of mine. And then also thirdly, this was the first movie in a long time where I really got that rush when you see that moment with at the airport with the 2 sides standing together, and you have new characters in there. This is the first time you're seeing the Ant-Man with the Avengers, and this is the first time you're seeing Black Panther and Spider-Man with the Avengers, and it was the first time since that epic scene in the Avengers where the 6 of them are standing back to back. I really equate that with that scene. This is the first time since then that I got this huge rush and this huge lift in my chest from the movie. So I think with all those things combined, it just really put it over the top for me. So I'd have to put it as my personal favorite right now.
Nice. I still think it's Winter Soldier for me for number 1. Number 2, like, it gets a little tricky after that. Like, it's up there. I think Civil War is there, Avengers, and like Iron Man, the first Iron Man, for me are really close to one another. I feel like Iron Man kind of gets lost in it, but I feel like you still have to give it credit for being a big reason why this all existed. If that wasn't as successful as it was, I don't think we get any of this. But I don't know. It's definitely in my top 3 where it fits. I'm not sure, but as of right now, I still like Winter Soldier a tad more. But again, after rewatching it, I could see it being top of the bunch. But either way, the Russo brothers, super excited what they're going to do with the Avengers, because I feel like they may have given us the best Avenger movie yet, which is saying a lot, and they've given us the best Cap movie already, so kudos to them, man. So
yeah.
All right. Anything else before we bring this episode to a close?
One quick thing I'll mention: when Scarlet Witch was fighting the Vision, do you guys remember her using her powers on him?
Her powers of seduction.
Yeah.
I had a huge, I guess, brain fart the first time I watched it, and I guess I wasn't paying attention. I was caught in the moment, or I was thinking about Hawkeye or something there. But Well, actually, no, I did catch it the first time. That's I don't know what I'm talking about. But the what she was actually doing was, controlling his power and changing his density. And I think some people were confused about that because they think she just kind of threw him through the floor. But she actually increased his density so high that the floor wasn't able to withstand his weight, and he fell through all those levels and really probably down into the earth pretty far too.
I thought she was using telekinesis to throw him down, but I guess that makes more sense if she was just adjusting his own power of density. That makes it seem more sensible, considering that, than her just having the ability to have telekinesis of that level.
Yeah, that's like the first time when I first saw the scene, I was like, oh wow, she put him right through the floor. And then as I thought about it a little bit afterwards, I'm like, oh, wait a minute, she just increased his density because she decreased it before that so that Hawkeye could get away from his sleeper hold there. He kind of like phased through him. So I thought that was really cool, little subtle thing that they did there. But also I noticed the second time I watched it, I saw that when she attacked Vision, the Infinity Stone was glowing red, like with her power. So she was like almost controlling the stone. And I thought that was really interesting. I did not see that the first time around. And I think it fits into my theory with Thanos killing Vision, possibly taking the stone. But if Scarlet Witch can sort of manipulate that stone better than Thanos can, that would give them a huge edge. But just something a little worth mentioning. It's very subtle. Obviously, the little tiny stone on his head is hard to catch with everything else going on. But, benefits of watching it again, you sort of look for more details and stuff. But some people picked up on it the first time, and I was impressed, but I didn't.
Very cool. Yeah, I think there's a lot more to catch with like that. If you sit back and watch it again, I'm sure there'll be videos upon it. But cool. Alrighty. But we'd like to hear what you thought of Civil War. You can let us know what you thought of us, or what you thought of the movie, what you thought of our review. You can go to geekcastradio.com, or we're on Facebook and Twitter. Just search Talking in Circles GCRN. You guys are also on Twitter. What are your Twitter names?
I am at Heroic Age Chuck.
I am at the Create Forge.
And I am at Movie Revolt. But that'll be it for this week. We'll be back next week. Same time, same channel, same podcast feed. But for now,
this has been Chuck.
This has been Greg, or Emo Tony Stark.
This has been Dan, and we've been talking about Civil War in circles. We'll see you next week.
Or Hot Aunt May.
It was Hot Aunt May.
Which rhymes with Marissa Tomei.
Maybe that's why they cast her this entire time. That was the reason.
Yeah. Hot
like how Stark called her your unusually attractive aunt.
She's pretty hot though, guys. I'm not gonna lie.
Lost in space. A rocket plummets to the surface of Mars at breakneck speed.
I think this is it, you guys. We're dead for sure this time.
Oh, what planet are we crashing into again?
Damn it, Greg! The narrator, who's obviously you, by the way, already said it. It's Mars. Pay attention.
Don't they say men are from Mars and women are from Venus?
Yeah, but that's just a book title. Whoa! Greg, you saved us!
Yeah, how did you do that? We tried everything to avoid crashing.
I don't know, really. I just didn't want to die on a planet of all dudes, so I course corrected to Venus.
Brilliant. So now we're going to die in Venus instead?
Pretty much.
Well, at least he brought us some more time.
Great. Now we just ran something over. Greg, why don't you go see what it was?
With Greg away checking outside the rocket's hatch, Dan and Chuck set to work fixing the rocket, flipping switches and pressing buttons.
We're sorry, the number you have dialed is not in service at this time.
Those aren't the right sound effects, Dan.
Oh, my bad.
Hey guys, look who I found!
Space Pope!
Hello, everybody!
Where did you come from, Space Pope?
Well, your friend Greg ran me over with your rocket.
All my lady friends could tell you that. Yeah, sorry, bad joke. And sorry about running you over to Space Pope.
Oh, that's all right, you little scamp. But it looks like you gentlemen are going to crash into Venus.
Do you think you can help us with that?
Of course I can. You boys just need to give me a hand by saying the Space Pope oath.
With endless hope, with whitest hair.
Surely he will lead us in prayer.
Spreading love, vanquishing fear.
Gather round! Space Pope is here!
A light emanates out from the Space Pope's chest and pulses. Each time it grows brighter until it becomes a blinding white light. The light dissipates, and the trio comes into view sitting in an old wooden attic.
Where are we?
Yeah, and where did the Space Pope go?
Hey guys, look what I found!
Greg, what the hell, man?
Where did you get that bucket of crap from?
Over in the corner by this hole.
Dan looks through the hole to see outside to a town square with people bustling about and Nazi flags flying high in the sky. The end.